Welcome to Not Going Quietly, the podcast where we inspire growth, beat down biases, and get into all sorts of good trouble with your host, Britt East. No topic is off limits as we explore ways to help everyone leap into life with a greater sense of clarity, passion, purpose, and joy. So get ready to join us for some courageous conversation, because Not Going Quietly starts right now. Hey everyone, welcome to Not Going Quietly, the podcast for heartbroken healers and outraged optimists all over the world, where we surface life's searing truths in the name of radical togetherness. I'm your host, Britt East, and I have these two fabulous guys that I can't wait to introduce you to. So let me dive right in. Maddox and Dwight, known as the Connections and Community Guys, started by hosting small gatherings to expand their social circle. These gatherings quickly grew in popularity, revealing the positive impact they could have on their local community. Soon they began attracting a vibrant circle of creatives who felt a strong need for a common, quote-unquote, watering hole, a place to connect meaningfully and share their unique journeys. Realizing they had something special, Maddox and Dwight turned this passion into purpose. Now they're excited to launch For the Love of Creatives, a private podcast and membership community dedicated to creativity, collaboration, and co-elevation. Amen. Both Maddox and Dwight are certified coaches with expertise in event facilitation, community leadership, and social intelligence. Maddox, Dwight, welcome to the podcast. How are you guys doing today?
It's great to be here. Thanks, Brad.
Yes, it is great to be here. It's been a long time since we last spoke, and it's just really nice to see your face.
Yeah, you too. For those of you listeners who don't remember, Maddox was on a previous episode of Not Going Quietly, and I'm so thrilled to have him back. And this is our first time with Dwight. It's so fabulous to meet you, Dwight. I'm really excited to learn about your message and what you've got in store for us. So why don't you tell our audience more about, for the love of creatives, what is the community about? What can folks expect to get out of it in the podcast?
Oh, there's so much. I mean, For the Love of Creatives, as you described in the introduction, was something that was born out of our need to try to build community. We started out by hosting small gatherings in our home, and we had a couple of remote events that were heavily attended by people that were in the arts. And those were the most exciting, the most fun, the most vibrant. And after doing a couple of those, it seemed like that really seems to be where the calling is. That really seems to be where we're drawn. And before, we were really just trying to figure out how it was that we could meet people, how it was that we could get people to come out of the funk that they were in after being in lockdowns, where they forgot how to people well. And it was like we were really missing, because a lot of people that were in the state where they were complaining about being lonely and not really knowing how to connect, there's a point where that's a choice. But, we found that people that were creating things really understood what it was to do that, not in a vacuum, not in a place where no one ever sees their work, but they really need to get out and be with people and be with other creative people so that they could have a way of being able to make their creations have new life and, live on through conversations and be the spark for the next ideas.
Yeah, during the pandemic, I said, when this is over and I can go back out into the streets and move freely without a mask, I'm going to do whatever it takes to create a epic social life. I'm going to turn my home into a social hub. That was literally the goal. And then we met, and he had a similar goal. He liked what my goal was. So we started hosting gatherings together. We never dreamed that it would turn into something more like it has. It just started off to be wanting to make some new friends. And here we are, I guess, October last month made 2 full years that we've been hosting events. We've probably hosted more than 20 now, and it just naturally evolved. It was like one day we just looked around and went, wow, this whole creatives thing, it really blows both of our skirts up. And, you know, we just thought, there it is right there. It's like the low hanging fruit right there in front of us. And we had been planning something else where we weren't sure where we were going to find those people. Mm-hmm. And then when the creative thing presented itself, we were like, dang, we know exactly where we can find those people. And it just made sense, you know. Those events were very engaging. The people really engaged in a magical way, and that spoke to both of us.
Oh, that's so beautiful. One thing I know about one thing I know about Maddox is when he says he's going to do something, he actually does it. And so it's like, uh-oh, look out. He's actually, when he says he's going to do a social hub, he's going to do a social hub. So,
you know, it's amazing how many people in my life reflect that back to me. You know, somebody said to me today, sent me a text and said, you know, that's one of the things I've always admired about you. You just get some cockamamie idea in your head and you go for it. And I do. They've not all been successful, but I still went for it and had a blast. You know, even if it failed, I had a good time. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, that doesn't sound like failure to me. That sounds like experimentation and homing your message.
Of experimentation. Yes. Yeah. You ask how we were doing. I would say we're both kind of stressed right now. We have put a lot on our plate with all this. We're trying to launch the podcast. We've got a big event coming up for February 1st, a live event that will facilitate for about 100 people at a big gallery down in the Design District. And on that same date, we're officially launching the membership community. It's all entitled For the Love of Creatives. We have the experience, we have the podcast, and we have the community.
No pressure, though.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. Probably more than I thought when we bit it off.
So you mentioned, both of you alluded to the fact that it was like a bolt of lightning when you got a bunch of creatives, maybe some professional, maybe some avocational, maybe some amateur in the room together. What was it? Why creatives? Like, why do you think that stood out to you and resonated so deeply with you so quickly?
You know, I think that I have always had quite a few creatives in my life. I've had friends that owned art galleries, and I go to a lot of art openings, and I love live theater, and I have friends that act and sing and perform. And so I don't know. I don't remember exactly. We made friends with an artist and his assistant. Mm. And we were just chewing the fat one day and asked them if they'd like to collaborate on one of our events with us. And they were like, well, yeah. And so they had lists, pretty big lists of people in the arts. And that was our first quote unquote party that was for creatives. And it was just like, knock your socks off. Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing because one of the things that really drove the success of that event was how that particular artist, when we were having talks with him, we leaned in on how essential it was to take care of the basic people parts of it, to really reach out, to let people know how important it was to execute manners that have kind of fallen to the wayside. One of the things that we had dealt with up to that point was there was a lot of FOMO and a lot of people that were just kind of flaky. They couldn't commit to actually come to the event. And the way that we do these things, there is a lot that's dependent on there being bodies in the room, there being energy and engagement. And if you have people that are just waiting around for something better to come along, then it's ruined from the beginning. And so he got his squad, and within a day, I think the event was filled.
Yeah, we sent invitations out, and I think it was less than 24 hours. It was sold out with a wait list. And yeah, and people were like, "Oh my God!" People were all night long. I've never experienced anything like this. It's not a party. Although in the beginning we did serve food and cocktails, and the one we're planning, we're going to have food and mocktails for insurance purposes. We don't do alcohol anymore. But it is a facilitated event. People don't just stand around with a cocktail in their hand, and it's not a networking event. In fact, we don't say the N word in our house.
No. Yeah, I think the other thing that's kind of important is that it's really something that's engaging before they actually even show up. Like before they cross the threshold, there's a lot that we're doing to engage them, to get them ready. We're doing a lot to kind of set the stage. And a big part of our evenings has been making it so that people know that they're in the right headspace when they're taking part. And we actually had a really fun experience where, because of some inclement weather, some people weren't actually able to make it to the opening circle at one of our events. And we could see the difference between people who'd had the experience of the briefing, where the things we stress are that they needed to be open. They needed to push aside any of that tendency to have judgment, and to be willing to approach people with curiosity and vulnerability. And the latecomers, we had some of them that were just so not ready to be in that space. One man, I think he was there for 5 minutes, and he said, I just can't do this.
I have to go. And he bolted out the door. We call people to get a little bit vulnerable. We put them in little groups, or we put them in pairs, and there's like tasks that they have to do. And the crazy thing about it is, with the exception of this one person, everybody just loves it. I mean, the big thing happened when we were maybe 8 months in. We'd done maybe 8 or 10 events. And at one of the events, somebody walked up to us and said, "What do y'all charge to do this?" And we looked at each other and we said, "Can we get back to you?" It was like, it never dawned on us that people would pay us to do what we were just doing for fun. And that was the way it, the day that it kind of switched from just some social fun to a business.
Yeah.
A business that we really believe that we can impact a very large group of people in a very positive way.
So what then is the community that you're creating in the private podcast? Is it sort of an online recreation of the in-person event, or are you teaching people how to host their own events, or sort of, is it something completely different? What can people expect?
We're still in development of a lot of this. The reason to bring people together is, and we hear this day in, day out from creatives, such a high percentage of that population are introverts.
Yeah.
And they tend to be in isolation, solitude. They do their creative things by themselves. They do the business aspects of whatever it is that they're doing. If they're marketing their art or whatever, they do that oftentimes by themselves. They wear all the hats, and very unsuccessfully, most of them, hence the term starving artist. And we just saw this huge need, both the podcast and the community is bringing those solo creatives from me to we.
Yeah.
Because we believe that when they can step out of the solitude, it doesn't mean they have to make art in big rooms of people that are also making art. It's not about the creation part, but it can be. I know I've painted some in my life, and the times I've painted the best art and had the most fun was when I was painting with other people painting right around me.
Well, and you brought up a very interesting point about introverts. Early on, the feedback that we were getting when we were hosting the events was that a lot of people who identified as introverts told us that they would have never, ever thought of doing anything remotely like the gatherings that we had because they found it to be the most frightening thing. But the way that we made space for everyone made it so that they felt okay. They could fully express themselves and not feel that there was any risk of judgment. And there's definitely a parallel spirit in the artists, no matter what field their creativity's in.
Yeah, common comments would be from some of these introverts. Oh my God, I've never ever been to any social function where it was as easy as this.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose of what we do, the whole facilitation, is to do just exactly that. We've all been to parties where there were little clumps of people and you couldn't really break in. It was cliquish.
Right.
And there were always people standing in the corner or along the wall by themselves with the deer in the headlights look on their face. I've been that person a lot in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very outgoing when I know you, but if I'm in a room full of strangers, I'm kind of shy. And it's hard for me to walk up to a group of strangers and talk. So I was the one standing over next to the wall or in the corner, hoping somebody would come up and say hello to me. And I know how uncomfortable and awkward that is, and oftentimes disappointing because you stand there all evening and then you leave not having ever even talked to anybody.
Yeah.
And we just didn't want people to experience that. So, we police the room, man. If there's anybody standing by themselves, we go grab them and usher them into one of the little groups if there is a little group.
Right.
Part of the evening is facilitated, then part of it they have a little bit of free time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's back and forth.
Right.
So it keeps things really moving. Usually the event is 2 hours long, and it's the fastest 2 hours you can imagine. It goes by so fast.
Yeah. One of the things that we noted as we were doing these was when we would go to other events, we were absolutely ruined because a lot of the things that people associate with having a good time are usually because they're distracted, they're drunk, or otherwise not in their right mind. So they fill in the blanks and just think, oh, well, I must have had a good time. There is nothing like going into a place and picking it apart. We're taking notes. We're trying to figure out, okay, what is it that we need to do to really deliver an experience as we're walking through? And so one of them was a Christmas party that was just dreadful.
Oh my God. I would have rather had a root canal. It was so bad.
It was just weird. And you had your cliques, and there were some people that had something that really drew them together. We were not their crowd. We were not volleyball coaches. So we had nothing to say to anyone. And another event was an open house for a new bank where a lot of people that were just kind of insiders in that scene were coming and being seen. And I could see with the body language in the room that it was one of those situations where if we weren't part of their crowd, or there was no way to bust into the circles.
I remember at that bank thing, we walked up to a gentleman, and what was the question you asked him? Do you remember?
I don't remember the question, but it was just showing up with interest.
Something like it was something that was different than what do you do, though.
Right.
It was not a what do you do. It was something like, well, what do you have passion about?
Yeah.
And his eyes got really big, and he said, I have to find my wife, and he bolted off. It was like, oh, bless your heart.
What are you guys doing to these poor people? They're like creating catharses wherever you go.
Well, the cool thing about it is what we do really does polarize people.
Yeah,
we know really fast whether they're our people or not. And we celebrate when those that scream and run, we celebrate. Yay, more room for the people who really want to come and sit between us.
Yes.
I know. What do you guys have against networking? I'm sitting over here with my MBA degree and my business card and thinking about how I can transact with people at a party. What's the deal?
Well,
You
that's it
said
exactly.
it right there.
That's it.
It is the word transactional.
Right.
Traditional networking is all a transaction. And I'm sorry, that's just...
Yeah. One of the things you learn in business is that quid pro quo will get you some HR issues. And
You know what we're after is the relational aspect, not the transactional.
That's really beautiful. That's really beautiful.
But it has, like you said, it's totally ruined us for regular parties. Anytime we go to any event, we're looking at each other like, "Oh my God, can we get out of here? This is so bad."
So what is your like big, hairy, audacious goal with this community? What is your big vision and your purpose?
ultimately, this is our way of being able to contribute to heal something that is broken. Uh, One of the things that really drove me into this was, well, I'll share a little bit about my pandemic story. I spent the pandemic lockdowns caring for a husband with a terminal illness, and it was uh, incredibly hard to be isolated. But I could see that he was going into the rabbit holes that are created by all of the things that you can scroll on, and in some ways becoming less human. We cherished the time that we had together, and as his health declined, there was more of that together time. But for the most part, we saw all of the things that you can mark that time by: the hate, the misinformation, and just the weirdness. Well, the thing is, that was an interesting experiment. Without everyone being locked in their homes, there's still that going on in the background. There's still that dull buzz of people being uneasy, falling into their filter bubbles. And the thing is, if we look back and think about what things were like for our great grandparents, there was nothing to scroll on. It didn't matter if they didn't particularly care for their neighbors. That proximity brought them together, and they had an interest in what was going on in the community of people that they could see, because they were all affected by the same things. Whereas because of our high technology and the way that we can transport ourselves to some other place and be disconnected from everything going on around us, in some ways, that's really broken. And it's really hard to fight against that. But by reminding people what it is to get dopamine from something that's accompanied by a bath of other chemicals that come from actual human touch, making eye contact, and actually just being decent around people.
Sharing a little bit of yourself with each other.
Yes.
You ask about the purpose, and what came to my mind was we got invited recently to a racial healing circle. And it was a very interesting evening. We really enjoyed it. Nowhere in the evening did we talk about racial issues or racism. But we walked away and I said, because they put the word racial in the name of the circle, all the people that came were the people that didn't really need to come. And the people that really needed to come wouldn't come because it said racial in the name. And I said, I looked at what they were doing there that night, the conversations and what they were, the guided, facilitated activities. And I went, we do that.
Yeah.
We do it a little bit differently, but we do it. And I realized, we don't say anything about race. I mean, we do have a diversity statement, which we promptly put up there, but it's about everything. Race is only a teeny part of it. In our events, and this has been across the board with almost every event we've had, the room is filled with every age group from in their early 20s to 70s. There are male, there are female, there are straight, gay, trans, non-binary, not a lot of them sometimes, but some representation. There are every color of the skin that you can imagine. our groups, when they come in, just magically are extremely diverse. Yeah. And we believe that that is the way we will heal our planet of all of the isms. When we can put people of as different as you can. There was a time when I would plan parties and I would put them in little boxes. So we're going to I'll have the white people over tonight. Next Saturday, I'll do the X color or age groups or straight or gay. I segregated them thinking that it just wouldn't be wise to put them all together. And then one day I just daringly thought, I want to see what happens. And it was magical. And it's been magical with every event we've done. In fact, the one event that we've done together where it was all the gay boys.
Oh my gosh.
Worst event that we've done. Worst event. Worst, lowest energy. The room was flat, couldn't get them to talk to each other. 2 different people walked up to me and said, "Oh my God, this is making me so uncomfortable. I think I need to leave." There were people that showed up late and left early. There were people that stood over in the corner and wouldn't talk to anyone else. It was the most awkward thing. Now, if it were a typical cocktail party, no problem. Everybody's slamming the drinks down and people are talking and it goes on. But the minute you start to put them in little groups and give them a hard question to answer, it went tits up. Britt, that I hosted a podcast for 2 years called The Authentic Gay Man. And really at that time was pursuing wanting to coach gay men, wanting to host a community of gay men. And that podcast, although that was a beautiful experience, and I'm so glad I did it. I loved every moment. I met some of the most amazing men that I've met in my life. It was still enough to let me know that I did not indeed want to do that. And there was somewhere along the way, right around that time, that I got this really strong message. That message that just comes into your beingness. It wasn't like the clouds parted and God said. It was just this message that it was time to stop separating ourselves. It was time to address humanity, to serve humanity. We keep compartmentalizing and putting ourselves in boxes, and that's not working for us. I've been out for 44 years, and I've listened to the gay community, bitch and complain about just, why can't we just be accepted? We just want to be accepted. Now the straight community has come in and filtered into our gay communities, filtered into our gay bars. They're completely cool. They want to hang out with us. And I can't hardly find a gay man that doesn't friggin' hate that. It was the last thing we had that was ours. I don't want them in our bars. I don't want them in our community. It was the safe place that we had. Gee, it still feels safe to me. I don't know. It's like, Anyway, a little off topic, had to go off on a little bit of a rant there, but the message was serve humanity, bring people together in a unique way. And when you get that diversity in one room, oh my God, magical is a complete understatement. I can't find a word that really does it justice.
Yeah, there's something that is just affirming when you see people that maybe for the first time they can be completely themselves, and there's just a transformation that happens. We were talking about people that are used to networking. There's a script that they follow, and they know that there's just certain things that they're going to do because it's part of the game. But when we move the goalposts, we change the rules, we make it so that the best way that they can operate in this space is to just be fully who they are, to let everything out. It's liberating, and it's something that's I think it's so foreign now, especially that people get it and they want more of it.
You're basically telling me you're sadists, is what you are.
Say that again. I didn't hear that.
You're basically telling me that you're sadists, but okay. No, I love this. This is actually the reason why I wanted to have you on the episode today. I resonate so deeply with what you both just said. And this is based on my personal journey. Everybody's going to have a different journey and arc, but I agree with what Maddox's your take has been, your tough truth for the community. For me, as I've aged, and I've probably been out, let's see, I'm 50, I've probably been out over 30 years, 32 years, I guess. There's been diminishing returns on the label. And now I'm moving into more of a life beyond labels. And I don't deny anybody the thrill of finding a community or slapping on a label, but it feels more like a hat or a name tag that doesn't mask who you are, that you can shed at will, that serves you, you don't serve it. And I think a lot of us have gotten it backwards, where it becomes our identity, where we hide behind it, where we use it for a quick serotonin boost or adrenaline hit, as Dwight was alluding to earlier, the cocktails we kind of keep ourselves anesthetized with. And so I agree so much with you. And there's, I don't know that there's anybody tougher on straight people than me, or more searing about the realities of the modern world. But when I was reflecting on, here we are in November of late November of 2024, after this cataclysmic election that we had in the US, when I reflect on it and the potential dire consequences of what we're all about to endure together, it actually made me want to be with people more, to be in more community with people, not less. Instead of cloistering and erecting walls and putting up gates and trying to create a safe space, quote unquote, it's made me want to be brave and create brave spaces. In fact, my previous podcast episode was with a young queer person who was advocating this as well. It made me so excited to hear this coming from a young person about, like, we don't have to coddle our delicate sensibilities. Lord knows we don't need to coddle straight people. But we can be mutually brave, and we can create brave spaces that call us forward, that evoke our adventurous, tender hearts. And so much I think of, maybe I can't help but wonder about the secret of your success, as maybe Dwight was alluding to, is the prep work, the pre-work, the containers that you create. So safety is intrinsically communicated and signaled. That's the baseline. That's not the goal. The goal is to entice people out of themselves into something new, to have a big, messy adventure, because that's what's human. That's relating, these big, messy, mutual adventures that we share with one another. And that's what's got me so excited about your work.
What we really learned and got clear on was that the two of us do not have the ability to create safe space. It's not humanly possible. And we say this out loud, and we, in the beginning of every event, we put people in a circle, and we kind of give them a little overview of what's going to happen that evening. And we tell them that we hold space, the two of us hold space for a safe container, but that we cannot do that without each one of them. And it takes every single person. And we ask point blank, are you willing to create your part of a safe circle tonight? Please raise your hand. And they raise their hands. And, they've made a commitment in front of everybody right then and there. And it changes the energy in the room. And then when we ask them questions that involve vulnerable answers, they're more inclined to participate because they do feel safe. Not because we created it, but they all co-created it.
They're beautiful. They have skin in the game at that point. They are part of the process. They're invested. It's not being done to them. It's being done with them.
social skills have been on the decline for a long time now. We took a really, really, and I'm sure there's things before this, but when I really first became aware of it was we took a hit when handheld devices came out. All of a sudden we got a screen to look at rather than to look into the eyes of the person sitting across the dinner table from us. We took another hit when social media came on board. Now people are doom scrolling instead of connecting with each other. And God, if that wasn't enough, then the fucking pandemic hit. And anybody that had a shred of social skills left lost it during that period of time. Like, I have this conversation and people will literally admit, oh my God, I'm one of those people. I know it. I have no social skills anymore. They're aware of it. Community is the only answer.
What does it mean to be in community?
Well, community is it can be as few as two people, as long as they genuinely care about each other's well-being. There's lots of frameworks around community, and I would say that we may have been tricked because there are groups that have been labeled as communities out of convenience. So, we talk a lot about the LGBTQIA plus community, when really that may just be a collection of people that might, the reason for the alphabet getting extended is because we're attaching labels to these people when they may be as different as night and day as you really approach them. They may not have any concern about the well-being of any of the others in that group. I think it's dangerous to assume that just because people share a trait that they are the same, or you can make assumptions about them. But when it comes to people that have a shared purpose, things that they can really get behind and really care about each other. I mean, care is kind of the essential ingredient when it comes to community. That's really what it's all about.
I think that the term community is misunderstood and certainly misused. I think it's very inappropriately used for the LGBT alphabet. I can't even say them all anymore. That's a group. That's not a community. Yeah. And I've lived in it for 44 years, and some of most of the worst treatment that I've experienced has come from other gay men in that said community. To me, community is about a deep caring. True community is people who know you, people who like you, people who trust you, people who believe in you, build you up, a place where you belong, a place that you can go when there's no other safe place to go, a place where people have your back. And that's what we are building. And we're so adamant about it that we've got some pretty hard, fast, zero tolerance rules where when somebody can't abide by the kindness and the uplift, and, when there's any division, derisiveness, I can't even say all the words, intolerance, criticism, judgment, they're out. They're out. We will ask people there will be an exit door. Yeah. We get that people get in skirmishes time. We know that there can be some conflict. That's all good. But when you start making other people wrong or diminishing them, it's time for you to go. That's not a community.
Who instilled or how or when was this instilled in you, this love of community, your ideas about community? Where did this come from?
I'd say a lot of it came from my roots in that I was, I think, groomed at an early age to be in spaces where I had to be something other than what I was, other than who I genuinely was. I've had some experiences where in interactions with my own parents, I know it comes from love, but I know for a fact that they uh, would rather see me in a state where I'm pretending to be happy than to know if I feel anything that is other than just a perfect state. And it comes from a good place. But uh, the things that I went through growing up prepared me for what it was to be enlisted in the era of don't ask, don't tell. It was dangerous for me to fully inhabit who I was because uh, it could have resulted in some pretty severe consequences, including, removal and possible time in prison. I think that creating a space where people can be who they are and share without fear of judgment, fear of persecution, it's something that's needed now more than ever. I look at how we have so many ways that um, people are driven by fear. People are bullied or intimidated, and it's really hard for me not to think of the horrifying scenes that we had with January 6th. And I know that that was just allowing things to manifest in the real world that we had seen only in online play up to that point. It was just a matter of time before we saw such escalations. And I feel that because we have othered people in such a way that they don't seem real, that life isn't as precious and that things don't matter, it's set the stage for those kinds of things. And it's important that we try to do something to get more in touch with humanity, more in touch with our own humanity, and create spaces where people, no matter how different, how, even if they are just on opposite sides of any issue, that they can be seen and heard, that there is a space where they can share without fear, and know that um, there's going to be a way where all ideas can see the light, and no one has to worry about about some horrifying scene. My goodness, I think about how history has shown us just how horrifying things can be. I'm glad that we're at a point where, for the most part, it's just historical a historical reference to see burning crosses, or to see the level of intimidation that we saw before the civil rights movement and Reconstruction in the South. And I know that it's our responsibility to make sure that we do what's necessary to keep us from regressing, from going back to those dark chapters, because I know that there are a lot of people that would like for us to be blissfully ignorant, to continue to stop thinking, stop questioning, and just continue scrolling. And go and blindly follow whatever violent path they deem necessary because they trick us into fearing something that isn't real.
You know, a lot of people, what's so cool about you is a lot of people might have, you know, a different reaction to adversity and might withdraw or be suspicious of community, but you wanted more.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful, though. That's really beautiful.
I'm the same way. I've always wanted more. You know, I grew up in a rural area in Central Texas, and in 1977, I married an Hispanic woman. I just, it's not that I hate when people say I don't see color. That's stupid. I see it. I just don't care. You know, I don't choose people based on, their level of education or their bank account or the color of their skin, or I choose people, whether it's friendship or more than friendship, based on who they are on the inside and how they show up in life. You ask about, what's the big draw towards community? For me, I think that the passion for community is born out of the lack thereof. I was othered my whole life. Growing up, all through my entire school years, I was bullied. I was treated poorly. I was a loner because just I was different. I was different, and I knew I was different. They knew I was different. I came out at age 24 and I thought, oh my God, my people, finally everything's going to be okay. I could not have been more wrong. It actually got worse. It was not the same kind of bullying, but it was worse. I got mistreated by the hands of other gay men more than I did with the straight boys growing up. My brother called the other day and I was telling him about our plans and our business. He said, so this community, is this going to be for gay people or straight people? Or not that there's a wrong answer, he said. And I said, it's going to be for everybody. We don't distinguish when it comes to sexual orientation. And I said, Randall, we've got quite a circle of friends now. After all these, we've met some incredible people, and we've got more people on our you can call and invite over list than we can manage. And I would say probably 98% of them are straight people. Well, I mean, we certainly have gay friends, but we kind of fell through. But we had an event, a little handful of people coming over tomorrow night, and we were going to be the only two at the table that were gay. The rest of them were going to be straight. And all of our straight friends treat us just exactly like they treat each other. Yeah. They're just, it's a no thing. And I don't even find that if I'm in a room full of gay couples, I can't explain that. I wish I could. I just get along with people. I don't care. I've got friends from all walks, you name it, and have had most of my life. But yeah, there's a lot of passion for community because we've adopted this. We agree on this, that we believe for every problem, the solution can be found in community.
Yes.
So how can we encourage, entice, support, nurture people from the gay group, as you call it, to choose community?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I have an answer for that. I've spent half of my lifetime just sitting in quiet contemplation over this, trying to understand. I think that after 80 episodes of my podcast, where I dug deep into every guest, about their deepest wounds, the horrible things that they had to endure. I believe that we have wounds that run so deep that we may never, ever overcome those wounds.
Well, I'm a great believer in the world operating as a mirror, showing what it is that we have deep inside ourselves. We're going to see it everywhere that we go. And so I think gay, straight, or undetermined, whenever you're going and you're seeing threats, or you just perceive that there is something uncomfortable in everything that you're interacting with in the world, it's because part of you is bringing that. And I think if you just reach to a point where you can just be kind to yourself, be open and curious, and just approach things with an open heart, an open mind, and just give people a chance. It doesn't matter. Even if people who you've known to have had a history of being angry, or in some ways toxic, part of that, you have to dig deep down inward and ask, well, how could I be contributing to that? But not in such a way as to beat yourself up about it, but to exercise some empathy, to appreciate that person who might be screaming or might be the bully might just be a lion with a thorn in its paw. Show up with a little bit of curiosity and compassion. And granted, there are people who are dangerous. By no means should you put yourself in a position where you're going to find yourself in a chokehold. But there are ways that you can let people know that you are a safe person. Let people know that you can show up with curiosity, you can show up with kindness. And if they so choose to unlock it, then you've opened the door. And that's all you can do.
I'm thinking about something I've shared from time to time on this podcast. I spend a lot of time in straight America, maybe the majority of my time, both personally and professionally. And one of the things that confounded me at first, or that's not quite right, maybe 10, 15 years ago, as I think back, was that I was pretty aggressive with my politics, and polarizing, and finding agency in kind of like queer rage, and confronted with straight coworkers who genuinely loved me and would in the same breath vote to eradicate me. The cognitive dissonance of the genuine affection, asking me about my husband, inviting us over, and then immediately pivoting and saying no discrepancy, and voting to remove my civil rights. They would ostensibly love to annihilate me in whatever way that they could. And who knows if and when and how they rationalize that in their mind. Like, I'm not that kind of gay, or Britt's this kind of gay. He's okay. He's not like the others. Or when I think of somebody as an individual versus as a group, who knows how those mental gymnastics go. But it took me years to wrestle with that and to find a sort of peace. And what it feels like spiritually to me is almost like unfocusing your eyes. Like when you look at those stereograms and you unfocus your eyes and the 3D image pops out. That's what it has felt like to me, to kind of like create space for grace, room for redemption. And it's like, Wow, I really don't understand everything. I really don't understand the depths of people's hearts and their souls. And yeah, I get pissed off about the way people vote and about politics and about this, that, and the other. And that rage can be righteous and fuel action and all of that. But I think maybe, what we have in common is like moving beyond the labels that define us and choosing to label us when it's fun, or choosing to label ourselves when it gives us leverage, or when it feels good, it feels like home, but to not let it limit us in any way, that we're so much more expansive. The breadth of us so far exceeds these meager labels. The words do not suffice. They cannot contain the complexity of the human heart, which never ran straight. So, that's how I've wrestled with it. And I in no way diminish the pain and the fear of what people are experiencing now or have experienced for generations. It's easy to come up with a list of grievances that are very real, of what straight people have done to this world. Straight men in particular have burned this world. But I'm not going to waste my life dwelling in that caustic fire. I'm not going to sear my heart in the fire. I'm not going to be, bludgeoned on somebody else's crucible. And so that's how I have reached at least what today feels like a détente, a peace, where I still have this huge activist impulse, but I more than ever long for the community. I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, I wonder how I can move down where these guys are and go to their events because they sound so cool.
Well, you'll need to come visit sometime.
Amen to that.
That would be awesome. We have had some people travel.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a woman come from, where was Stephanie from? Pennsylvania?
Well, we've had Pennsylvania, Florida.
Yeah, we've had some people, kind of work their business, travel around so they could come be in Dallas at the time of one of our events. It's been pretty cool, and they're always like, "Oh my God, this was so worth making this trip for."
I do travel a lot, so maybe we can make that happen. I'm interested, as we wrap up today, to know what gives you guys hope.
Hope. I believe that I'll go to the quote from Dr. Martin Luther King, where he was shortening the quote from Reverend Parker about how the arc of humanity is long, but it bends toward justice. On a long enough time scale, we can see that things are always getting better. We're going to be in some periods where we are in some dips. Right now we're in a phase where the whole world is leaning toward an authoritarian bent. And in the US, we've jumped on that train, but we'll be okay. Things have been a lot worse, but the worst of us have it pretty great if you just think about what it was like, a century ago. I think that this past pandemic that we went through, it was just too long since the last one, and so we don't have that memory, that could save us. That visceral, real feeling of it, not being something that was in a history book, so we kept making the mistakes. But thankfully, we had a lot more tools to help us. We had science that was quick to make it so that we did not annihilate ourselves.
I think I'm going to sound a little bit like a broken record. It's okay. But what really gives me hope is being in that room. Being in that room filled with that extremely diverse group of people, and feeling the energy about how excited they are to meet each other, and how excited the ones that have met before are so happy to see each other again, with no regard to age or skin color or sexual orientation or any of that. It is the one thing that, because it's a lived experience, it's not some pie in the sky. It's a lived experience right there in this room. If we can do this for 2 hours right here, we can do this out there.
And I'd say that feeling is as addictive as any drug, but far, far better for you.
On the nights that we host events, I don't sleep. I don't sleep the rest of the night. I'm up all night long. Can't sleep. It pumps me so full of whatever drug your body produces, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin. I can't keep that shit straight. There is so much raging through me that I plan. I know that I can't have anything planned the next day because I'm going to be toast, because I'm going to miss an entire night of sleep because I'm so revved up.
Oh my gosh. Well, gentlemen, it was so fabulous to talk with you today. You're always so inspiring, Maddox and Dwight. It was just such a pleasure to meet you. I'm so thrilled about the community that you're creating. I think it's a model for all of us to be brave, to disrupt our behavioral patterns, like Dwight alluded to at the very beginning of the show, where we maybe conditioned ourselves oh so gently into maybe some isolation that isn't serving us any longer. We're going to load up the show notes so everybody can find your socials, your website for theloveofcreatives.com, but so you don't have to scribble anything down. We'll put all of that in the show notes. It was just so great to have you on. Thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate it.
It was really great to be here, Britt.
This was amazing.
And you do an amazing job of interviewing and teasing the questions out. This was, scale of 1 to 10, I got to give you a 12, buddy.
Oh, thank you so much. That means the world to me. I look up to you guys so much. So thank you for joining us. And dear listeners, you've made it through another hour of Not Going Quietly. We could not do this without you. Thank you so much for sticking with us, for all your support, all your comments, all your likes. Keep it coming. We are here to serve you. And by the way, this was our 50th episode, 50, which is a lot for me because I have a full-time job and I'm tired. So this is a lot, but we got here together in our own community, which can be a model for us all. So thanks again to Maddox and Dwight for joining us for theloveofcreatives.com. Bye-bye now. You've been listening to Not Going Quietly with your host, Britt East. Thanks so much for joining us on this wild ride as we explore ways to help everyone leap into life with a greater sense of clarity, passion, purpose, and joy. Check out our show notes for links, additional information, and episodes located on your favorite podcast platform.